Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Carl Anthony, and this is AutoVision News live at AutoSens and Incabin USA 2024. We are in the heart of the Motor City at the Huntington Place in downtown Detroit. We are joined now by Professor Michelle Valstar, founder, chief evangelist, and scientific advisor of BLUESKEYE AI. Michelle is an expert in machine learning, computer vision, and facial expression analysis, and a thought leader in effective computing and social signal processing. After nearly 20 years in this field, his work has been published in over 100 peer-reviewed publications, which have been cited over 17,000 times with an H-index of 51, making him the second most cited person in the field of social signal processing. Michelle's work has been featured in Science Magazine, The Guardian, New Scientist, and on BBC television and radio. Michelle, glad you could join us. Welcome and thank you for being here.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Michelle, tell us a little bit about BLUESKEYE AI. Give us an overview of the work you do.
BLUESKEYE AI was really born out of the desire to take the analysis of medically relevant behavior out into the real world. We did this in my lab for many years, but we weren't really getting the impact that we wanted to make. We couldn't quite take the product all the way to where we wanted it to take. So we spun out BLUESKEYE. That's over 5 years ago now, really with the aim to make it much easier and better to recognize medical conditions that currently are very hard to detect.
Sure. Why would we want to detect medical conditions inside of a vehicle?
Well, from the occupant's perspective, the kind of medical conditions that we are able to detect, like depression and anxiety, you can actually do something about those, in particular if you detect them early. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason. From the perspective of the OEM or the Tier 1, there is a whole new revenue stream available here.
Sure.
Future cars will mean a lot more automated driving, much more autonomy, meaning that the driver will have more free time on its hands. Sure. So you can then use that time to actually do a bit of therapy or a bit of exercises, right?
Sure.
And of course to sense. The cabin is also a really good environment to sense these medical conditions. These are very slow changing conditions. Parkinson's, for example, right, takes months and months to develop.
Sure.
Humans are terrible at recognizing these very slow changing things, but machines are very good. And especially if you commute on a day-to-day basis, you are in the same car,
right,
same time, same person, same environment. It's a really good environment to sense.
Right. Michelle, how is BLUESKEYE AI addressing Euro NCAP 2030 and even going beyond what is currently possible when it comes to driver monitoring?
Yeah, so today we focus really on the health and well-being of people, so we don't actually do driver safety. But Euro NCAP 2030 contemplates social distraction, emotional distraction. It looks at medical conditions that impair driving, intoxication, etc. Now, these are all the human behaviors that we are so good at detecting. So that's what we're preparing for now.
That makes sense. We had mentioned some medical conditions before, but more specifically now, what medical conditions can BLUESKEYE AI technology detect from just the face and maybe our voices?
Yeah. So today we have a clinical trial that we run to detect depression with the NHS in the UK. And we're working with sort of some of the largest academic institutes on dementia and anxiety, ADHD and autism. So those are the medical conditions that we work on. The depression will be the first one that goes all the way to actual medical device and be certified as such.
Right. I think that's so fascinating because I still suffer from anxiety and I do drive every day. I'm in my vehicle every day. I've gotten good at recognizing the symptoms and my triggers over the years with therapy, but At first, I didn't know what that was. I didn't have anything or anybody to help guide me through that. So we spend all our time in the vehicle. We spend so much time in our vehicle. So to be able to have that, I think is truly valuable.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that, first of all. And secondly, what you're saying is that you are now able to recognize some of these signs, right? But that probably took you years.
Yes, it did.
To do that.
It did.
And you now probably have mechanisms to deal with that when you recognize it.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to give people more power, more empowerment to self-regulate and self-help with these conditions, not over-medicalize it. And that means that if you then get an indicator that, you're getting quite stressed, for example, right?
Sure.
Personally, I deal with stress, very high stress sometimes, periods, weeks and weeks of being on very, very high, you're on a high basically.
Yes.
And I know,
I hear you,
that it'll take weeks for me to come off of that.
Indeed.
So I need to act early and I need to act for quite a long period of time to come off that again. You don't want to crash, you don't want to burn, and this is the kind of thing that we can help people with.
Yeah, I like this because this is your technology puts a very human element into the vehicle. When we're talking about the raw materials of a vehicle, you're talking about the human element, and humans drive the vehicle ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's more than just a sack of meat behind the wheel, right?
Correct, correct. Do you see your technology being used in, say, like a robo-taxi, for example?
Yeah.
Are there applications there?
Yeah, so robo-taxis and other autonomous vehicles where there isn't it's a service, so it's not your car, but it's not, there isn't a human operator anymore. That brings with it its own challenges of, let's say, people's behavior in there. So I think there's a lot of a lot you can do there. The other thing is the portability of your own settings to a vehicle that is not your own.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to, before we close our interview, I want to talk about your work as a full professor at the University of Nottingham. Tell me about what you teach and tell me about what you enjoy about being in the classroom and in an academic setting.
Yeah, well, what drew me originally was the research, right? That was really what I got interested in. I got really interested in artificial intelligence and the puzzles that brought with it. Then I got really interested in the communication of ideas and working with people and teams. I love teaching one-on-one in particular, and I love teaching areas that I'm really knowledgeable about. So I taught machine learning. First time I taught machine learning was 40 students. That about 2000. And then about 5 years later, it was like 280 students, and we had to cap it. We could accept no more students. And that's, of course, the whole hype of AI at the moment. It's fascinating to help people. Always what I say about AI is it's not magic. It might feel like magic, but it's not. And you can understand it. You can learn how to do it if you just put in the time and the effort.
Yeah. Michel, from all of us here at AutoVision News and Sense Media, I want to thank you for your time, for sharing your expertise. Have a great rest of the show and safe travels back home. And let's do this again sometime, hopefully sooner than later.
Thank you very much. It will be my pleasure.
More to come from AutoSens and Incabin USA 2024 at the Huntington Place in downtown Detroit, alongside Professor Michel Valstar. I'm Carl Anthony, AutoVision News.